And the time is just 9:30. Split ends and message to my girl. And how are your split ends this morning? Ray Summers from Whitehorse Neighbourhood Watch. Good morning, Ray.
Good morning, Peter.
How are they? They all right? You're taking care of your
Yes, I
split
don't know.
ends?
I think the umpires are getting stuck into North Melbourne. That's upset me.
Oh, give it a rest.
You can only laugh today because Carlton didn't lose over the weekend.
No, we did not.
No, you didn't play either.
No, well, there is that.
Yes. Anyway,
Yes, you blokes had a real whinge about it, didn't you?
Didn't we?
Yeah.
Rightly so.
But then they had to back off, didn't they? There'd been
that's all right.
a message that got mangled somewhere between the boundary line and the coach's box, and I think they had to apologise.
Have you ever been to the football and yelled at the umpire and then thought, now I should take that back and apologise?
Absolutely not.
No, well, that's all right then. I've thought that a couple of times. Peter.
What's happening?
I have found a former visitor to this station, the anchor man for Neighbourhood Watch, Graham Elder.
Yes.
And I brought him along today. Graham is going to give us an update what's happening on the biggest scene for Neighbourhood Watch, what's happening with crime stats, which he's been doing a training course so that he can read them.
Yes.
It took him 18 months. That's where he's been, learning how to read stats. But Graham's been active in other areas, had time to get over some football injuries, and now he's back into it. Back on the state board for Neighbourhood Watch, and he's now become a specialist in reading these stat information. Today, he has come along to give us an update on what's happening in Whitehorse, Melbourne and Victoria in crime and in crime with Neighbourhood Watch. And I'd like to ask Graham to share his good news with us.
Good morning, Graham, and welcome back.
Peter.
It's nice
Thanks
to
very
see
much indeed.
you back behind the desk, as it were. I know you handed over the baton. You said 2 years ago now, off air, I think. Was it 2 years ago?
Bit more than that.
Bit more than that.
Yeah.
But well, he's doing a reasonable job, you'd have to
good.
say.
That's good.
So
yes.
we won't replace him yet.
No, when I looked back to see what I said last time I was here, it was I think March 2014.
Goodness.
Was the last time I'd been in.
Welcome back. Good to
very
see you
much.
again, and looking forward to hearing what you have to say.
Okay, well thanks Peter, and thank you to Ray. It is great to be back into the studio at 3WBC after couple of years. As Ray said, I'm still working with the State Board of Neighbourhood Watch and on the Executive Committee at Whitehorse, although I have been forced to restrict my activity somewhat, so I'm not involved in as many things as I was before, which I think my wife is pleased about anyway. But I'm pleased to report that Neighbourhood Watch is alive and well across Victoria, although you do still hear people saying, oh, I thought it had folded. You still hear that quite a bit, and it's certainly not true. There are several new groups been formed in the past year or so, and the state office is currently assisting residents who want to set up Neighbourhood Watch in quite a few places. Just the ones last month, Tarneet in Melbourne's outer southwest, Pakenham, a new group wanting to start out there in the outer southeast, St Albans in the west, and Gunbower up on the Murray, between Echuca and Swan Hill. So that's just the ones that wanted to get some help to start up new Neighbourhood Watch groups in the last month. So it's still alive and kicking and growing.
No, that's a good thing. I guess a lot of people would have found a lot of the older branches closing up. So the thought immediately out there is, Neighbourhood Watch has folded up altogether and gone away, which is definitely not true.
No.
And it is very encouraging that new branches are opening up in newly developed areas. Obviously, residents in that area are thinking home security is not quite enough. We just need that extra edge.
Yes,
don't we?
a lot of the ones in recent months and the last 18 months have been in new developments.
Yes.
Caroline Springs has been around for a while, but that places out in those areas, new groups are starting up. As real estate opens up, they tend to start a new group, which is great.
It is.
And these local communities are generally able to secure sufficient funds through grants and donations and the local people to assist the police in crime prevention. And this is the strength of the organisation, assisting the police in crime prevention. However, we lack a source of ongoing funding for that never-ending and unfortunately essential administration and coordination functions at State Office. So that's a job that I'm heavily involved in. Although the state government has made an amount of $50,000 available for each of the 3 years from July 2015, this really only provides little more than the cost of one part-time staff member.
Yeah, that's not much, is it?
And we continue to rely on the generous support of our volunteers, including the board members, who are all volunteers, to keep the wheels of the administration turning. And I might add on the board that about half of the board are people who have been volunteering with Neighbourhood Watch for some time, like myself. We're voted on by the members, but the others are people that we've sourced from outside Neighbourhood Watch to help us to run the place. And we hear a lot about the red tape in running a business. Well, unfortunately, even a community organisation like Neighbourhood Watch needs to have administration resources in the background looking after issues, planning, financial reporting, the old GST and BAS returns, public liability, risk, all those things that you just have to do to run an organisation these days, and keeping track of the volunteers across the state. So we do need to have funds to run a back office, unfortunately, and it's difficult to get some. So one of our priority tasks at the board is to secure a private source of financial support and sponsorship, because I don't believe that the government is going to continue to provide the money to run the back office.
That would indeed be unfortunate.
Yes, but we'll keep going. We ran on an oily rag there for many, many years before the government gave us any funding, and we'll work hard to achieve a sponsorship. Back in the early days, a long time ago, we did have quite good sponsorships from the SEC, so it's going back a bit, and a few insurance companies and Tattersalls and so on. But that sort of funding for background work is very hard to get these days, because there's not the publicity involved in it. No. But hopefully we'll find someone who wants to be linked with the good work that Neighbourhood Watch does,
indeed.
And we'll be able to use their funds.
And indeed, insurance companies should be jumping on the bandwagon. Not all of them, obviously. You'd only want one, I guess, and they would only want one. But there are so many ample opportunities now for sponsors to have their brand, their logo exposed on websites and other material that Neighbourhood Watch publish. And that's a beaut opportunity for somebody out there. Youi Insurance comes to mind. Think about that, Youi, if you're listening this morning.
Yes, well, we have had talks with a few, and talks are ongoing. So
good.
Watch this space. We will get there. There's no doubt about it. But as I said at the start, Neighbourhood Watch is alive and well, and this is strongly demonstrated now by the fantastic support that we're receiving from Victoria Police at all levels. VicPol recently hosted a strategic planning day for Neighbourhood Watch, and Ray and I went along there. And we were joined by the Chief Commissioner, a couple of Assistant Commissioners, together with several superintendents and a smattering of inspectors. So that's high-level involvement.
High-level stuff, yeah.
As I said before, one of the major roles of Neighbourhood Watch is to assist the police in crime prevention. And our State President and Acting CEO meet frequently, at least once a month, with senior officers from what's known as the Safer Communities Unit, which is the Department of Victoria Police responsible for crime prevention. And just an aside, a couple of weeks ago, once again, Ray and I took the journey. Neighbourhood Watch held a regional state forum in Sale, and there were 3 senior police members from the Safer Communities Unit who travelled the 200 plus kilometres to participate. And there are also 3 local police officers, including the superintendent, attended that meeting. So this type of support really makes a difference, and that's what it's all about. The police are responsible for crime prevention, but there are lots and lots of things that the Neighbourhood Watch volunteers can do, and Ray knows this very well because he's involved in all of these and organising them. It's not a good use of police time to be going around distributing brochures and doing things like that, or letters in letterboxes so we can help them there. But to ensure that Neighbourhood Watch groups throughout the state are better able to effectively assist the police, one of the tasks that we're working on this year is developing standard program guides which will be available on the internet so that groups who are new or haven't had experience in running certain programs can have a look on there, and they can get instructions and examples of how to run prevention activities for the major crimes such as residential burglaries, car theft, theft from motor vehicles. In fact, Neighbourhood Watch Whitehorse was responsible for preparing the guide for theft from motor vehicles. Excellent. I'll talk a little bit more about theft from motor vehicles in a moment. And in addition, a training manual is up on the Neighbourhood Watch website to give instructions and assist groups in setting up and running their local groups. So we're becoming more and more efficient in assisting groups to run. Whilst we've had Neighbourhood Watch websites, Facebook pages and so on for several years, one of the objectives for the next 12 months is to work with our stakeholders, and that includes Victoria Police, to encourage greater use of new technology by local neighbourhood watchers to promote crime prevention and community engagement. Now, it's no secret that the majority of Neighbourhood Watch volunteers are in their more senior years, and many do not readily embrace some of the new technologies, although many of them do use them to some extent, even if it's only to keep in touch with the grandchildren. And in fact, I've even had to resort to some of that to find out what's happening with my own grandchildren.
How true.
But if we are to remain relevant and attract the support of the community, we must make greater use of that technology. And that doesn't mean that everything will suddenly go electronic, because there's still a place, a very important place, for the newsletter in the letterbox. But we must start to give the residents some options. So there are certainly some interesting times ahead. The other topic that Ray mentioned that I'll cover this morning is that of the latest release of crime statistics. You may recall a few years ago the police were no longer able to provide crime statistics for local areas, and this still applies. They can't give us any numbers. But the quarterly statistics are now made available by an independent body, the Crime Statistics Agency. So they're the same statistics, but they're not released by the police, they're released by CSA, Crime Statistics Agency. And they came out with their latest batch of figures, quarterly figures, last Friday. So these are hot off the press. And the good news with the Crime Statistics Agency, unlike the police system, CSA will be able to give us extra reports if we ask for them. The statistics that were released last month were up until March 2016, and unfortunately it still takes about 3 months before they can release them, because they have to be manipulated. Well, sorry, that's not a good massaged. They're coming from the police system and they need to do a bit of work before they can release them. For the 12 months to March 2016, the number of offences recorded in Victoria was 519,130, which is up 12.4% on the same period last year. So for the 12 months, it's up 12.4% on the previous year. And if we take into account the increase in population, the crime rate per 100,000 of population increased by 10.3%. So it's quite an increase. And the 4 local government areas in our division had mixed results. Firstly, in Whitehorse, the total number of offences only increased by 1.5%. And in fact, on a population basis, we reduced a little. So that's a fantastic result. Manningham had an increase of 10.9%, while Boorandarra increased by 18.3%, and in Monash, crime reported increased by 24.7%. But there's a reason for that. The result in Monash was largely influenced by a massive increase of over 120% in the number of deceptions or scams. So it seems as though someone was running amok over there with some dodgy deals.
Isn't that interesting?
So, yes, Monash suffered from that. Now, I mentioned before the motor car theft and theft of items from motor vehicles. This is by far the largest crime category, and it increased by 16.4% across the state. However, in Whitehorse the increase was less than 1%, and in Manningham around 3%. And it's pleasing to note that these two local government areas have significant Neighbourhood Watch crime prevention programs targeting motor vehicle thefts and thefts of items from motor vehicles. As I said before, Ray and his crew go out with our crime prevention officer, leading Senior Constable Beck Millen, at least once a month to distribute brochures or letters in car parks or areas that have been identified as hotspots for thefts. And we're extremely active in the distribution of security screws to reduce the theft of number plates. Yep. So we'd like to think that the reason why Whitehorse has done so well is all that work. Now, in Burundara, the thefts increased by 17.8 and in Monash by 16.2. The other major area is burglary, and that's the other thing that Neighbourhood Watch can do quite a bit to work on. And burglaries in Whitehorse are down over 13% on the previous year, with Burundara and Monash also reducing by 3 and 1% respectively. But unfortunately, Manningham has not had a good experience. It happened a bit earlier in the year. It hasn't increased in the second half of the year, but earlier in the year, and they set up a whole new Neighbourhood Watch group in one area. I won't mention that particular area, but they were being hit with lots of burglaries, and they're now able to.
That's good news.
Help
Very
with
positive,
that.
Yeah.
So it's most pleasing to note that Whitehorse, Burundara, and Manningham, our little corner of the world, have some of the lowest crime rates in the state.
That's well done.
So that's good. But that's enough of the statistics, and it hasn't taken me 18 months to learn that, but it's going to take me the next 18 months to work out how we're going to make better use of those statistics.
Yes, so that's good news, and I know that Ray has been, with his team, has been putting in a lot of work about theft, regarding theft from cars, motor vehicles, and people still won't learn, will they, Ray? They still won't learn. Leaving computers, GPS systems, mobile phones, wallets on the front seat. I just don't get it. It's crazy.
Keys.
Why do people do it?
Yeah, and the big thing, one that I think we need to have a look at is in service stations. I was reading a report on the Idiot Box just over the weekend of the number of thefts of vehicles from service stations where people not only leave the car unlocked when they go in to pay, but leave the keys in it.
Leave the keys in it.
And there was one particular fellow who had stolen 4 cars in a week from one service station, just waits in the bushes until he sees someone go.
And here I go.
And off he goes. So it's certainly one that we have to learn. Lock your car, take your things with you, even if you're just paying for your petrol.
Yes. Good idea. Good advice from Neighbourhood Watch. Thank you very much, Graham. And do you have anything to add to that, Ray Summers from Neighbourhood Watch?
In very brief, in the prevention officer's reports, the same old things, theft from motor vehicles, theft from burglary of cars and so on and so on. But one thing that is standing out, and it appears on our website, theft of number plates. Up to, I think I read, something like 17,000 number plates have been knocked off.
Is that right?
Yes, and that appeared in that CSA report. Now, that's they've counted. How many happened, and that the detail doesn't get to the police. But anyway, time's running away from us. Important, we've got a lot of news. Look up the Neighbourhood Watch Whitehorse website, and that is www.nhw.com.au/Whitehorse. I think that's the important message today.
Terrific. Thank you very much, Ray Summers.
Thank you, Graham. And you enjoy your holiday.
I shall. Thank you very much.
Both you and I are having holidays next month.
As it should be.
Definitely.
Good on you. Thanks very much, Ray Summers. And thank you, Graham Elder. Lovely to catch up with you again.
Nice to see you, Peter.
And we'll look forward to getting together again next month, Ray. Thank you.
The following month.
Oh, the following month. Oh, thank goodness somebody's awake here. 11 minutes to...